So India and Pakistan on the edge of a precipice. India has carried out Operation Sindoor, in which 9 different locations have been hit, 21 strikes over a period of 25 minutes. India has indicated it does not want to or is interested in escalating further. The question is, how will Pakistan respond? Will it choose to take the off ramp, or will it escalate further? And if that happens, then how does India respond? Are we now on the brink of possibly an all-out war between these two nuclear-armed neighbors? Christine Fair is an American political scientist, professor with the Georgetown University, is an expert on Kashmir and Pakistan. Thank you very much, ma'am, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. First things first, what do you make of Operation Sindur, which was launched in the wee hours of this morning on the 7th of May by the Indian Armed Forces? They have said that they've hit 9 different locations, from Muzaffarabad in the north to Muridke and to Bahawalpur, which are the headquarters of the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed. What do you make of the operation and the action that the Indian Armed Forces have taken?
So I think it's a really important note that the Indians have really escalated by targeting Muridke and Bahawalpur, which are in the Punjab. I think, as all of your viewers know, the Punjab is pretty much the heartland of Pakistan. It's certainly the heartland of the Pakistan Army. And so when you talk about will Pakistan take the off ramp? Well, right now there is no off ramp. The Pakistan Army has been put into a position where it's going to have to retaliate. And then once that retaliation takes place, it depends on how Pakistan's going to retaliate. But a retaliation is most certain to happen. I think at the strategic level, no matter how important these attacks are, and I certainly believe them to be important, the strategic level, it doesn't change Pakistan's calculus. And so, going to some of the things that former Army Chief Vaid Malik had to say, we've seen this rodeo before. We saw it at Pulwama, right? A pretty sharp conflict crisis. There was an off ramp. Normalcy returned to the valley for several years. But if you know the Pakistan Army, you know that the Pakistan Army is an insurgent army. The Pakistan Army's goal is not to defeat India. It knows that it can't. The Pakistan Army's goal is to show that it has not been deterred by India. And how it does this, unfortunately, is by episodically conducting strategic terrorist attacks in Kashmir or sometimes in India as well.
It's interesting you say
elsewhere in India. I don't mean to imply that Kashmir is not a part of India. Yeah. That wasn't my intention.
I just want to go to the part where you said this is the first time that India has hit Punjab proper, whether it's Bahawalpur or Muridke, and that, as you said, is the very heart of the Pakistan military establishment. Why is that such a, crossing a red line in your view?
I don't think it's necessarily crossing a red line, but it definitely means that looking for an immediate off-ramp is not going to be something that the Pakistan Army is going to be interested in. We also have to remember that this particular Pakistan Army, at this juncture in time, is really waning in popular support. Many Pakistanis have soured on the institution because of its treatment of Imran Khan. In fact, one may even say that maybe the timing of this attack in Pahalgam was precisely to generate a conflict wherein Pakistani support for the army would be shored up. So this is Pakistan's heartland. This is the heartland of the Pakistan Army. So I fully anticipate that Pakistan is going to retaliate.
So here's the thing. We're all trying to understand, what is the shape or form or nature of this response. And I want to go back to one of the points that you made. The thinking of the Pakistan Army is like an insurgent group. And that's why they could use these terrorist proxies, the Lashkars and the Jaishas, and there was always this degree of plausible deniability. Now, though, do you see the Pakistan Army sort of having been forced to respond in a conventional, proper military response, as opposed to the guerrilla stuff that you were talking about?
No, so what I was saying is that when there is a perduring peace in the valley, this is injurious to Pakistan's interests, right? Because it looks as if the Pakistanis have been compelled by India. And how do the Pakistanis prove that they haven't been compelled by India? Well, they conduct a terrorist attack. That was the argument that I was making. And what this means, unfortunately, is that the Indians are not able to, within the time constraints of a short war, to deliver a decisive defeat against the Pakistan army. It just can't. That's just not an option that's available to it. It becomes more possible over a longer war, but longer wars are also very challenging because of the specter of nuclear weapons that both sides have. So unfortunately, as important as these strikes are, it isn't going to change the strategic calculus of the Pakistan army. I anticipate very much like Pulwama, there's going to be a crisis, there's going to be an off-ramp, there's going to be peace in the valley for some time. And then after a number of years, there's going to be another terrorist attack. And so, I think India is in a pretty tough bind. The international community doesn't take this terrorism by Pakistan seriously enough to put serious sanctions upon the Pakistani state. And the reason why Pakistan absconds every time is because of its nuclear weapons. Everyone is too afraid to do something catastrophic to Pakistan, the results of which might be Pakistani failure. Now, I, for one, reject those doomsday scenarios. I think we need to be very coercive towards Pakistan, but it's never going to happen. And so that puts India in this situation of every so many years having to mow the Pakistani terrorist lawn. And this is where we are.
No, what you're talking about is this pattern of, there's a terror attack and then there's punitive action. After a few years, there's again another terror attack and then there is further punitive action. What I'm interested in knowing, and I guess our viewers, the greatest curiosity right now, the greatest interest is in knowing what is going to happen in the next 2 or 3 days. If you were thinking like Asim Munir is thinking, what would he do?
Well, I can't think like Asa Munir for a variety of reasons.
I mean, as a phrase, as an expression.
No, I mean, and so that's not really my strong suit. My strong suit isn't playing armchair quarterback of what Pakistan is going to do in response. What Pakistan has said it's going to do is that Pakistan is going to respond by targeting those military bases from which assets were used to hit Pakistan. I mean, now I don't go around taking Pakistan at its word, so I don't think you should either. But I'm not in a position to propose what Pakistani targeting might look like.
But let's just for a moment, assume that argument happens. Because look, India is very clear in the statements that it put out. It drew a very, very fine distinction. It said no military targets have been hit. It is only terror and terror infrastructure. If Pakistan were to retaliate, it would have to cook up that these are the places where India is fomenting, Baloch terror or whatever it is that they want to cook up, or they have to hit military targets, like you said. And if they do hit military targets, where does that leave India? Does that leave India with no other option but to climb the escalation ladder?
So, I mean, so that's the concern with these kinds of operations. And when India decided that it was going to launch strikes against targets in the Punjab, this was obviously a risk that India is willing to take. So, right now, it's not evident what is going to be the de-escalation off ramp. It's not clear right now because we haven't seen what Pakistan has done. So I'm not a big fan of speculating about assumptions being presumed.
Okay.
So I'm gonna demur from answering that question.
You did say earlier that the international community has not quite confronted Pakistan and said that you can't do this whole double game of just sending these terror proxies every once in a while and creating these terror attacks. What about Trump though? He has pitched himself as the anti-war president. Famously on the campaign, he kept saying again and again when in his first term not a single war started, and he already has 2 wars that he's hoping to end in the next 4 years. And they are very difficult to end, as he's discovering now in office in his second term. Does he want to see a 3rd war start on his watch?
So I don't think we can look for sagacious leadership coming from Trump. This is just not something that this president is capable of delivering. So we have to look at the State Department and Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is not someone that I find particularly palatable. He is very much Trump's sycophant. He was a pretty vocal Trump foe turned Trump loyalist. I know that Paul Kapoor has been tasked with has been proposed as the Assistant Secretary of State. I presume that he is providing wise counsel to the State Department, although I haven't seen any impacts of that wise counsel. what we're still seeing is the both sidisms. So I don't think India can look to Trump for leadership. We like to believe that Marco Rubio is a little bit more competent. From what I've seen thus far, I don't have a lot of confidence that that's
Okay,
the
so
case.
if the U.S. is not going to intervene or use its influence to calm down tempers, what
Well, I
about
didn't I
what?
didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. What I thoroughly anticipate is there's going to be a lot of diplomacy with regards to Pakistan and with regards to India. I don't know how efficacious, I just don't know how efficacious those efforts are going to be.
Okay, okay, that's the U.S. question. What do you reckon China is in a position to influence Pakistan and say that look, it's not in its interest to climb the escalation ladder? Does China have the leverage and the inclination to do that?
So China has the leverage. I don't think China wants to see a full-scale war. But I also don't think that I think China does have a mild incentive for this conflict to play out a little bit, kind of along the lines of the duration that we saw at Pulwama. Unlike Balakot when Pakistan scrambled American jets, I think we're mostly going to see Chinese assets at play. And China might be interested in seeing how Chinese assets fare against India's Western assets. So China, it's not like Cargill, where China played a very important role in telling the Pakistanis to stand down. I think China will eventually play that role, but not necessarily as quickly as you or I would hope.
Okay, so coming back to as we come to the concluding part of this interview, um, and I'm trying to to ask this in a different way because this is the top of mind concern for all our viewers is how are the next 2 or 3 days going to pan out, and what do you expect is going to happen? Militarily in terms of retaliatory strikes. This is a direct challenge, as you said, to the Pakistan army and its heartland, which is Punjab. So the military part and of course the diplomatic part. How does India deal with the diplomatic fallout of this escalation as it's seemingly coming?
I mean, I don't know the answers to those questions. And so I'm not someone who just makes up bakvas to fill up airspace. I don't know the answers to those questions. I think Pakistan is going to take a while, maybe a day or so, to figure out what its response is going to be. If if you think that Indians were demanding a response following Pahalgam, you can imagine that the Pakistanis are demanding a response following these strikes into the Punjab. Pakistan will tolerate attacks in so-called Azad Kashmir or Pakistan administered Kashmir. Ordinary Pakistanis are not going to tolerate attacks in the Punjab. So this was a really important risk, a really important gamble that the Indians took. So we're going to have to just, whether one likes it or not, it doesn't work well for news cycles. We're just going to have to wait and see what the Pakistanis do. And how the Pakistanis choose to retaliate, then the ball is in India's court. And then we're all going to be hoping for swift global diplomacy to create some sort of an off-ramp where both sides have their pound of flesh and can create the domestic narrative that it's time to de-escalate.
Is the IMF negotiation that Pakistan has in a couple of days from now in Washington, is that a mitigating factor, if you will, in disincentivizing the army from retaliating?
No,
It isn't.
no.
And why wouldn't it be? It's a lot of money for a country that's broke.
Because Pakistan knows that its history with the IMF is that Pakistan never gets cut off from the IMF. And the reason for that is Pakistan's nuclear weapons makes Pakistan too dangerous to fail. So Pakistan knows that the international community doesn't play this brinkmanship with the IMF. That's why Pakistan was never put on the FATF blacklist. It was always on the gray list. And then, I mean, in a complete farce, it was even removed from the gray list, right?
Yeah.
So Pakistan is confident that the international community is not going to play brinkmanship with the IMF.
Even
It
if
certainly,
even if in the next 24 hours they retaliate, there's a big military strike, and in the next 48 hours they go to the IMF asking for money, it wouldn't be a
no,
factor, you think?
I don't believe it's going to be a significant factor that deters Pakistan from undertaking retaliatory strikes.
All right. Christine Fair, thank you very much. Fascinating conversation. We're all trying to make sense of what happens next. But thank you very much for attempting to. make sense of what could likely happen next. But we'll see. We'll
Well,
see
thank
which
you.
of these.
Thank you for having me. This was great fun. I
All right.
enjoyed listening to Vaid Malik as always. All
All
right.
right.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.